As we head into a new school year, we'll get a report on the state of Madison's schools this morning on For the Record. Good morning, I'm Neil Heinen. Talk about starting a new school year with some momentum. The recent release of the first annual report on Superintendent Jen Cheatham's strategic framework offered a jolt of optimism not felt around here for a while. There seems to be a lot on which to build, in addition to a better understanding of where improvement is needed, and some indication of how the greater Madison community can support the effort. Superintendent Cheatham is one of my guests this morning, along with Madison School Board President Arlene Silvera. Thank you both very much for joining me.
Thank you, Neil.
If you could start, Superintendent, just with sort of a snapshot of this report. People have seen some of it, I think, but just as we lead into why things have gone the way they did, what are some of the highlights that we should start with?
I think a few big highlights. I think the report shows that we built a very strong foundation for future success, demonstrated by the strong school improvement planning process that we've established this past year, which is about creating the disciplined way of working that we know is necessary to raise student achievement for all and narrow and eliminate achievement gaps. The common learning focus across the district, focused on great teaching in Madison that is culturally and linguistically relevant, and our work around 5 big priority areas that are really aimed at giving our schools the tools and resources that they need to be successful.
Those are the 3 areas on which this foundation are built.
Correct. And not only have we built a strong foundation, but we're seeing some promising results already, which I think is actually quite unusual for a school district in its first year of a major reform effort, major change effort, which we believe is pretty extraordinary.
I mean, I remember being part of conversations where 3 to 5 years was sort of the beginning point, you know, that people in the community were talking about. Let's see how this looks.
Yeah.
What we're saying, what this report indicates, is that after 1 year, there's progress that you wouldn't expect to see in a couple of years.
I think that's right. Not only is there progress, but it's consistent progress across schools, in particular at the elementary level. Sometimes, if you look at student achievement data at a high level, it may look better, but it may be a small number of schools that are carrying the district, having gotten really great results in 1 year, and the rest not so good. But what we're seeing is that across the vast majority of schools that we saw not only improvement in rates of proficiency, particularly in literacy, which has been our focus, but improvements in students making growth in a year's time, which is really exciting. We have lots of work to do.
Right.
I don't want to over-celebrate. We have lots and lots of work to do, but it is extremely promising.
If we get a chance, we'll talk a little bit about high school and middle school and those differences later. But just in general, again, what are these measurements based on? Is this all test scores that we're using here?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. We have 3 major goals as a district. One is about students being on track to graduate, and we measure that in the more traditional ways. Some of our internal school district standardized assessments in literacy and mathematics, as well as things like GPA and graduation rate at the high school level. But we have 2 other major goals as a district, which we believe are equally important. The second goal is about access and participation in a well-rounded educational experience. So we don't want to overemphasize the tested subjects to the detriment of the arts, world language, all the experiences that we know really ensure that our students graduate college, career, and community ready.
Which is measurable based on the number of students in those courses, is that?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. I want to maybe come back to that later. And then the third goal is about the climate that we're creating in our schools, both for our students and families, but also for the educators who work in our schools. Again, you can raise student achievement in literacy and mathematics, but do so by creating a culture that's punitive and negative, and that's not what we're about.
All right, so I understand the role of data in the first 2. What about the third? How are you measuring that?
This year, as going into the next school year, we're going to be launching a new annual survey for parents, staff, and students in the higher grade levels that will help us set a baseline in our annual report a year from now, and then measure progress in the years to come.
Okay. Maybe you can include some of this in your analysis, Arlene, because even if it's anecdotal, I mean, I think there is evidence of the third area that I see. Talk about from a sober school board perspective how this looks to you.
Well, you know, the board is just really pleased with the foundation that has been built this year, and optimistic about the results we're seeing. As you know, as Jen said, we still have a lot of work to do, so we are pleased with the plans going forward. We're hearing a lot of anecdotal data, and you know, from the schools are becoming the center of educating our children exactly where they should be. And people that are talking with us are feeling, you know, part of the process, that they are involved at the school level, in the school improvement planning, and that really for the first time in a long time, you know, they have a hand and a voice in the direction that we're going. And that's really exciting for people in our schools.
I just, for people who don't have kids in the schools in particular, Arlene, what is the difference? Why does this feel so positive now as opposed to previous approaches that have been tried?
Well, I think some of it is ownership. You know, you have a voice, and when you have a voice in something, you feel much more part of the process, and I think that's very important.
So what do you think, there are more people who feel ownership? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. The school improvement planning process, which Jen implemented, is really the center of moving things forward in the school. Involves school leadership teams, it involves families, it involves, you know, a much broader range of people. This is what we need for our school. This is how we're going to work in our school. This is how we're going to measure the results in our school. And that's really, really important to people.
Yep.
Going forward. And we're beginning to see results, and people love to see results. Hey, it's paying off. You know, small steps, but small steps forward, and that's really wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, I want to touch quickly again on the school improvement plan. So we're going to do that when we come back right after this. I'm back with Madison School Superintendent Jen Cheatham and Madison School Board President Arlene Silvera on the always hopeful dawn of a new school year. This one perhaps slightly more hopeful than most, given the results of the first report of the first year of the strategic framework that Superintendent Cheatham has instituted in the schools. Just the words school improvement plan could, I think, be easily for some just more educational jargon. All right, but I think these plans really are at the heart of at least the first year's results. And so I just want to make sure people know that these exist. They can find them online. Each school has a plan that people can look at. I mean, just talk about a little bit more about the school improvement plans.
Yeah, the school improvement plan and the process associated with it is at the heart of our improvement strategy as a district. And just to say a little bit about the rationale there, we believe that the people who work closest with our students and their families are the ones that should be in the driver's seat. That I couldn't possibly mandate from our central office what exactly every school should be doing to get the results that they need to get in their particular school and school context. So that's what the school improvement planning process is all about. What it entails is every school working with their staff and family and community members to identify goals for the school for that upcoming year, a small set of powerful strategies for meeting those goals that builds on the work from the year before. So we're not making any sharp left or right turns unless we need to, which has been a problem in our school district in the past. And
too many left and right turns.
That's right. Yeah, too many changes in direction. no one can get traction.
Right.
And not only having a strategy, but having a process for monitoring high quality implementation of that strategy and outcomes along the way, so that a school can make adjustments throughout the school year, not just wait to the end of the school year to find out that the strategy was working or not working. Right. And not only that, but having a plan for building staff capacity to implement the strategy well. So I mentioned earlier that the school improvement planning process is a highly disciplined way of working, and that's what I mean.
Yep, okay.
And I believe strongly that schools aren't
I think that's helpful. I think we're going to have to keep saying this over time for people to really understand it. But
I think so too. So all of the plans are posted on our website, that is correct. Not only the complete school improvement plan, but a shorter family-friendly version of that school improvement plan, which is important. The new plans for this upcoming year will be posted by probably early October.
Okay.
We give all of our schools that first month of the school year to fine-tune and make sure the plan is right, given one last round of input from family and staff at the beginning of the school year, and then we're off to the races.
okay, so using that perhaps as a contextual piece, then help us understand some of the real success stories that are outlined in this report.
You know, we wanted to highlight in the report a few examples of what it looks like when a school is really making serious progress. And the truth is we could have picked quite a few schools.
Exactly, yeah.
The report would have been much longer if we wrote a profile in every school that's making accelerated gains in our school district right now, which is great. That was a good problem to have. We zeroed in on 4 schools to highlight, 2 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school in the report. And these are schools that have really taken the improvement strategy, this approach that we're describing, this disciplined approach, as a district really to heart. And I think implemented that strategy with maybe more determination and tenacity and focus than some of our other schools. And as a result, I think really have shot out in front of some of the other schools, which bodes well for us. We call in the report these school profiles are leading indicators of future success as a district as a whole. And what's exciting to see, I mean, especially at the elementary level, we saw improvements across the board and across student groups. But in the schools that we profiled, we see schools that showed accelerated gains for the focus groups of students that they were really working hard with. So for example, Gompers Elementary is one of the schools that we profiled in the report, and you see that they made absolutely tremendous progress in increasing the percentage of African American students meeting their growth targets in a given year. This is the kind of improvement we expect to see among all of our schools as we continue.
It's got to be a fascinating discussion these days at the school board level, Arlene. You know, I've watched school boards for a long, long time, and I think the perception of this bureaucratic sort of governance structure, but to be able to sit down as a board and look at some of these success stories and say, all right, now what does this mean for how our district operates?
It's been an exciting year. And you know, Jen and her team are doing an incredible amount of work in many areas, from hiring to, you know, all of the things that she just mentioned. It's just very busy, and as a school board, we're sitting there feeling really comfortable and confident. It kind of switches the way we do business. It's not as much questioning why this, it's more how can we support and get this done faster to keep up with it, because it's just all fitting into place and making so much sense. It feels good.
I don't know if this makes sense, and tell me if it doesn't, but that idea of support, mutual support, I think runs through this plan in a lot of ways. And I'm getting the sense that teachers in the schools see people coming in from the district and not necessarily passing judgment, but offering support. How can we work together? School board has got that same approach. You seem to have that same approach. Does that make sense? I mean, is that what's going on here?
Yeah, you know, in fact, we talk internally among our principals and leadership team members about some of the cultural shifts we're trying to make as a district. One is about moving away from a culture of compliance to one of performance. So we're not doing anything because someone told you you have to do it. We're doing it because these are the strategies that get results for kids. And one of the other cultural shifts we've been talking a lot about is moving from a culture that's adversarial, which is what I think you're getting at, to one of partnership, where there's reciprocal accountability and everyone is playing their part well.
All right, we need to take another break, and then when we come back, I want to talk specifically about racial disparities right after this.
Great.
Madison School Superintendent Jen Cheatham and School Board President Arlene Silvera are with me this morning. We're talking about the first annual report of the MMSD Strategic Framework as we look ahead to a new school year. I remember a while back, Jen, you saying that even some of the ways you were talking about the strategic framework were not in terms of what we're used to with closing the achievement gap, since that was intended to be just woven into every thread of this report. So specifically, how does this reflect that approach to racial disparities that we're seeing here?
Thank you for asking that question. The strategic framework, which is the document that describes our approach as a school district, has baked into it an approach that we believe is the right approach for not just raising student achievement for all children, but addressing opportunity gaps that lead to gaps in achievement for our students. So just to demonstrate that more explicitly than maybe I have in the past, I think I need to do better at describing this. The school improvement planning process that we've instituted is not just about filling out forms and checking off boxes. It is about this disciplined way of working that ensures that the people who work in our schools know every child, understand every child's strengths and every child's challenges, and respond accordingly. We've been working hard at building the capacity of every school's leadership team to work in that more disciplined way. And as we head into next year, we're going to really be focusing our attention on the work that teacher teams do so that they're working in this much more disciplined way that we believe is necessary to close achievement gaps in our district. The second major part of our strategic framework is this common learning that we're all doing as educators to learn how to better plan our instruction, deliver instruction to the wide range of learners in our classrooms, and to use data and student work to understand how well our instruction is working for the students that we serve. And what's important there is that we're tying that professional learning across the district to a common definition of great teaching that is culturally and linguistically responsive. We've actually worked with Gloria Ladson-Billings, for example, over the past 6 months or so to help us really tighten that definition of great teaching. Because without it, we're just, continuing to provide professional development for the sake of providing professional development, but not to build capacity among our educators to meet the needs of all of our students. So I think what we're going to see as a district is longevity when it comes to our professional development approach, anchored to this stronger shared definition of what great teaching looks like that meets the needs of all kids. And then finally, these 5 priority areas that we've been working on, as outlined in the strategic framework, are not just about providing tools and resources for schools, very important though, because we don't want them all reinventing the wheel, but it's really about tearing down institutional barriers and institutionally racist barriers to our improvement. And the best example of that, I think, from this past year is the work led by our school board on the behavior education plan,
Right.
where we realized that we had a code of conduct that was highly punitive and disproportionately affecting African American males and students with disabilities, and that we had to do something about it. We had to change it. And the school board did change it with lots of support and input from the community at large. And now we have a behavior education plan going into the upcoming year that's meant to keep students in our classrooms where they're learning from their mistakes, restoring relationships, and getting to start fresh.
I want to close by looking ahead to the next year and by acknowledging that we don't have time to get into all of the places where the community gets involved in these schools. This is another show that I think we want to talk about,
That'd be great.
because it's a whole other component here. But maybe, Arlene, you can just, how does the school board talk about this looking ahead to the new year?
We're excited about the new year. We know there's a lot of work to be done and are ready. Family engagement is going to be really critical to the school board this year.
Which I consider one of the community opportunities there.
So we look forward to new ideas that we can better interact with all of our families, because that's so critical in moving forward. And so it's going to be another wild one, because there's going to be a lot happening, and I say that in a very positive way. We're very pleased. We're not yet satisfied. We are where we need to be, but we're heading in the right direction.
This is your first opportunity to sum up a year in a minute, Superintendent.
Oh my gosh. So I'll just say that what you're going to see in the upcoming year is sustained focus. We know we're on the right path, and we're going to continue on that path, keeping our schools at the center, as Arlene already mentioned. We believe that our teachers and principals and those who work in our schools have the skill and will, and we want to empower them to make great decisions on behalf of children. And then lastly, working hard on developing this culture of excellence, high expectations for everyone, students and adults alike, and equity, giving everyone what they need to be successful.
Okay, have a good year, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to come back and
Thanks,
wrap up For the Record right after this. A reminder, you can find the annual report and all the school improvement plans online. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Sunday on For the Record.